Let me tell you something, love, real interest, real connection, it has a way of slipping past your defenses. You can tell yourself you're too busy, too independent, too focused on your goals, but when that one person gets in your spirit, oh, they start living in your head rent-free. And you in theirs. The funny thing is, a lot of the time, neither one of you says it out loud. It's all in the little moments, the small actions, the unspoken signs that tell the truth long before your mouth ever will. When someone is always on your mind, one of the clearest signs is that you remember the smallest details about them. Things most people wouldn't even notice, let alone hold on to. It's not something you do consciously, it just happens. Your mind becomes like a personal vault, storing away their words, habits, preferences, and quirks as if each one is a rare gem. You're not just remembering what they say, you're remembering how they say it, the exact tone, the look in their eyes, the way their lips curve at the end of a sentence. These details stick because that person has left an emotional imprint on you. When we care deeply or feel a strong connection, our brain treats information about that person as important and worth holding on to. It's the same reason you might forget where you put your keys yesterday, but still remember the exact story they told you about something that happened years ago in their life. It's in the little things. Knowing how they take their coffee without ever having to ask, remembering the name of the street they grew up on, or catching the fact that they like their music just a little louder than most people. These aren't grand gestures or headline moments. They're intimate snapshots that show how closely you're paying attention. The truth is, we don't remember everything about everyone. We remember what matters to us. And when someone has become a meaningful part of your thoughts, everything about them feels like it matters. What makes this even more telling is when you realize the attention is mutual. They recall things you thought were insignificant. The way you said you used to doodle in the margins of your school notebooks, the often comment you made about your favorite candy, or the fact that you hate being cold. When both of you can recall these small details about each other, it's more than politeness or good memory. It's a sign that you're both mentally and emotionally tuned in. It's not just memory, it's connection. You're investing mental energy into keeping a piece of them with you, and they're doing the same. That level of attention is often subconscious, and it's driven by an emotional bond. Think about it, we might interact with dozens of people in a week, but only a handful make enough of an impact for us to remember specifics about them without effort. The smallest details become anchors, little reminders of their presence even when they're not around. For example, imagine a woman named Sarah who works with a man named Daniel. They're not dating, not openly flirting, but there's a spark neither of them talks about. Months ago, Sarah casually mentioned she loved the smell of jasmine because her grandmother used to grow it in her garden. She said it once in the middle of a busy conversation. Weeks later, Daniel is walking past a street vendor and smells jasmine tea brewing. Without even thinking, he buys a cup and leaves it on Sarah's desk with a simple note. Thought you might like this. She's surprised he remembered. She barely remembered saying it herself. But that's the point. When someone is always on your mind, you file away these small details because they matter to you, and when they do the same, it's a clear sign you've been living rent-free in their thoughts too. The smallest details might not seem important, but in reality, they are the quiet evidence of deep interest. They're the threads that weave your thoughts together, even when you're apart, creating a mental and emotional tapestry that says, "You matter to me enough to remember." And in the language of unspoken feelings, that's one of the loudest things you can ever hear. When two people can't stop thinking about each other, one of the clearest signs is how they keep finding excuses to talk. It's rarely about needing anything specific. The conversation doesn't have to be deep, urgent, or even important. It could be something as small as sharing a joke you heard, sending a random photo that reminded you of them, or forwarding a link to a song you think they'd like. The point is, you keep reaching for reasons to make contact, because hearing from them feels good, and not hearing from them feels like something's missing. This isn't the kind of communication that's scheduled or forced. It's spontaneous, almost instinctive. You see something in your day and immediately think, they'd laugh at this, or I have to tell them about this. It's not that you can't function without talking to them. It's that your day feels brighter when you do, and it's mutual. They respond with the same energy, finding their own ways to reach out. It might be a question they already know the answer to, just so they can keep the exchange going. It might be a comment on something small you posted, even if they could have scrolled past. Both of you are subtly weaving each other into your daily lives, and you may not even realize how often you're doing it. The psychology behind it is simple. When someone matters to us, our brain craves their presence in any form. Interaction gives us a small dopamine hit, a boost of positive emotion tied to their attention. That's why even short, seemingly meaningless exchanges carry weight. They serve as little reminders that you're on each other's minds and that connection is alive and well. Sometimes, these excuses to talk are so small they might seem insignificant to an outsider, but to you they mean everything. Good morning, text, a funny meme, a random, guess what happened today, message. These are the breadcrumbs of a bond that doesn't want to fade into the background. Silence feels like distance, and both of you would rather bridge that gap than let it grow. This kind of communication can also serve as emotional reassurance. Without saying it directly, you're telling each other, I'm still here. I'm still thinking about you. It keeps the connection fresh and makes each interaction feel like a continuation of a long, ongoing conversation rather than a new start each time. For example, imagine Alex and Maya, two friends who clearly have a deeper connection brewing beneath the surface. They don't officially talk every day out of obligation, but it somehow ends up happening anyway. One afternoon, Alex is in the grocery store and sees a new flavor of the chips Maya loves. He snaps a picture and sends it with a simple, "Look what I found." A few hours later, Maya hears a song on the radio that reminds her of a funny story Alex told once. She sends him the link with, "Thought of you when I heard this." Neither of those messages is earth-shattering or life-changing, but both are meaningful. They're small, deliberate openings to keep the flow of communication alive. They're little signals saying, "You crossed my mind, and I couldn't just let that pass." When two people keep finding reasons to talk, it's not just about passing time or avoiding boredom. It's about creating moments to be present in each other's lives, no matter how small those moments are. It's a quiet, consistent pattern that reveals the truth. You're not just part of each other's day, you're part of each other's thoughts. And neither one of you is in a hurry to change that. One of the most telling signs that you and someone else can't stop thinking about each other is how easily you can pick up on each other's energy without a single word being spoken. They could walk into a room, sit down across from you, or even just answer the phone with a hello, and you instantly know what mood they're in. It's not because they told you. It's not even because they're showing it openly. It's because you've developed such a close mental and emotional connection that you can sense subtle changes in their tone, body language, or presence that other people might completely miss. This level of awareness doesn't happen by accident. It's built through repeated focus, deep interest, and a constant mental presence in each other's lives. When you've been thinking about someone often, you become familiar with their rhythms. The way their voice usually sounds when they're happy, the pace of their speech when they're stressed, the look in their eyes when something's weighing on them. Over time, these patterns become second nature to you, like recognizing your favorite song after just the first note. It's not simply about observation skills, it's about emotional investment. You pay attention because you care enough to notice the difference between their "I'm fine" when they really are fine and their "I'm fine" when something's clearly wrong. And it works both ways. They notice the shift in your tone when you're tired, even if you try to hide it. They can tell you've had a rough day by the way you walk into the room. It's a silent language, built on connection rather than conversation. This sensitivity often leads to moments where you feel like you're reading each other's minds. You might start asking, "What's wrong?" before they've even said a word. Or they might check in with you at the exact moment you needed someone to ask. It's not magic. It's the result of paying close attention, of holding each other in your thoughts enough to recognize even the smallest shift in energy. The beauty of this kind of connection is that it goes beyond logic. Sometimes you can't even explain how you knew something was off. You just felt it. That feeling is the product of emotional attunement, a deep undercurrent of understanding that exists between two people who think about each other more often than they admit. For example, imagine a man named Chris who works in a busy office. One morning, his friend Emma walks in. She smiles and greets everyone as usual, but Chris immediately notices something in her eyes, a slight heaviness that no one else seems to pick up on. He doesn't know what happened, but he just feels it. Later that day, he sends her a short message. "You okay? You seemed a little off this morning." Emma pauses, surprised. She thought she'd hidden it well, but she had been dealing with some personal news. She admits she's been feeling low, and Chris's simple check, it makes her feel seen. That's the power of instantly picking up on each other's energy. It's not about having all the answers or reading minds in a supernatural way. It's about being so present in someone's life, so tuned into their natural patterns that you can sense when something shifts, even in silence. And when that awareness is mutual, it's more than just a sign of attraction. It's evidence of a bond where your hearts are already in constant conversation, whether your mouths are moving or not. One of the most subtle yet powerful signs that you and someone else can't stop thinking about each other is when you both notice the same things. It can feel almost eerie. You point out a detail, make an observation, or share a thought, and they instantly respond with, "I was just thinking that." This isn't a one-time coincidence. It happens so often that you begin to recognize a pattern. It's not that you've planned it, and it's not because you share the same exact life experiences. It's because your minds have become so tuned into each other that you process the world through a similar lens. This mental alignment comes from familiarity, attention, and a shared undercurrent of thought. When you think about someone often, you begin to understand not just their personality, but also their perspective, the kinds of things they notice, what makes them laugh, what they find beautiful, and even what irritates them. Over time, you find yourself picking up on the same moments they would. Your thoughts start to overlap, because without even realizing it, you've been learning to see the world through each other's eyes. What makes this even more interesting is that it's not always about major events or big topics. Sometimes, it's something small and almost meaningless to anyone else. Noticing the way the light hits a certain corner of the room, laughing at the same oddly specific scene in a movie, or both spotting the same quirky stranger in a crowd. These moments might seem insignificant, but they carry weight because they're a reflection of shared attention and shared thought. It's as if your minds are taking the same snapshots at the same time. This alignment isn't just about similarity, it's about connection. Plenty of people share opinions or tastes, but not everyone experiences those little "me too" moments with such perfect timing. When it happens repeatedly with the same person, it's because you've been subconsciously syncing up with them. And this syncing often stems from a deeper truth, that you've both been thinking about each other enough to naturally stay on the same mental wavelength. There's also an emotional comfort in these moments. When someone says, "I was just thinking that," it's a small but powerful affirmation that you're understood. It means your way of noticing and experiencing life isn't just yours, it's shared. It can make you feel closer, even without explicitly talking about your feelings. For example, imagine two friends, Ryan and Chloe, sitting in a coffee shop. They're in the middle of their own tasks, not really talking much, when a couple walks in wearing matching raincoats. At the exact same moment, both Ryan and Chloe glance up, look at each other, and start laughing. "I was just about to say something about that," Chloe says, and Ryan replies, "Same here." They didn't plan it. They weren't even in the middle of a conversation. But they noticed the same detail in the same instant because their attention naturally flows in similar ways. It's a moment that passes quickly, but it leaves behind a quiet recognition they think alike, and they're often on the same mental track without even trying. When two people consistently notice the same things, it's more than just shared taste. It's evidence of mental closeness. It means your thoughts are circling in similar patterns, shaped by the presence of each other in your minds. It's one of those hidden signs that you're not just passing time together, you're moving through the world in sync, even when you don't realize it. And when that kind of connection is mutual, it's rarely an accident. It's a reflection of how often you occupy each other's thoughts. One of the most unmistakable signs that you and someone else can't stop thinking about each other is when time feels completely different depending on whether you're together or apart. When you're with them, the hours seem to disappear in what feels like minutes. You can spend an entire afternoon talking, laughing, or simply enjoying each other's company, and before you know it, the sun has gone down. The conversation never runs dry, the moments never feel forced, and there's a natural flow that makes you lose all awareness of the clock. That's because your focus is so fully locked on them that your mind stops measuring time in the usual way. It's measuring it in shared experiences, smiles, and small glances. On the flip side, when you're apart, time stretches endlessly. Minutes feel like hours, and hours feel like days. You find yourself checking your phone more often, wondering if they'll message, replaying your last conversation in your head, or imagining the next time you'll see them. It's as if your mind is stuck in a holding pattern, waiting for the moment you're back in their presence. This change in how you perceive time isn't something you consciously control. It's a natural side effect of emotional investment. The psychology behind it is rooted in attention and emotion. When you're emotionally engaged and deeply present, you enter a state often described as flow. In this state, your mind becomes absorbed in the moment, and your awareness of time diminishes. That's why hours can feel like they've vanished when you're with someone you care about. On the other hand, when you're longing for someone's presence, your brain becomes hyper-aware of the absence, causing each second to feel heavier and slower. It's important to note that this isn't just about romance. The same phenomenon can happen with close friends or loved ones, but in the context of mutual attraction or deep emotional connection, it's amplified. The difference is that when the connection is mutual, both of you are feeling the same time distortion. They're losing hours when they're with you and dragging through minutes when they're away from you, just like you are. This altered sense of time can be a powerful indicator of how much space you occupy in each other's minds. You're not counting the minutes because you're busy making memories when you're together, and you are counting the minutes when you're apart because the absence feels like a gap in your day. For example, imagine Julia and Marcus, two colleagues who've been growing closer over the past few months. One Friday evening, they end up staying late at the office, talking about everything from childhood stories to career dreams. They glance at the clock, thinking maybe 30 minutes have passed, only to realize it's been nearly 3 hours. The next day, they're both at home, and Julia keeps looking at her phone, wondering if Marcus will text. Marcus, on the other hand, keeps checking the time, waiting for an acceptable hour to call without seeming too eager. The hours drag for both of them, not because they're bored, but because they're mentally replaying the night before and wishing it could happen again. When time feels short in their presence and unbearably long in their absence, it's a clear sign that your heart and your thoughts are deeply tied to them. That shift in perception isn't random. It's your mind's way of telling you that these moments matter. And when it's happening to both of you, it's not just a feeling, it's a shared experience that reveals just how much space you've taken up in each other's lives. One of the most intriguing and hidden signs that you and someone else can't stop thinking about each other is when they start appearing in your dreams. Dreams are often a reflection of what's going on in our subconscious minds, and while they can be strange and unpredictable, they tend to pull from the thoughts, feelings, and experiences that are most active in our waking life. When a person keeps showing up in your dreams, it's rarely random. It's usually because your mind has been giving them so much attention during the day that they naturally spill over into your night. This happens because the brain doesn't shut off when you sleep. Instead, it processes memories, emotions, and unresolved thoughts. If you've been replaying moments you shared, thinking about what they said, or imagining future interactions, your brain logs that information and often turns it into dream material. And if the connection is mutual, there's a good chance they've been dreaming about you too, even if neither of you has said anything about it. These dreams don't always play out in obvious romantic ways. Sometimes they're completely unrelated to reality. Maybe you're both on a road trip in another country or working together on something totally random. Other times, the dreams might be almost identical to real moments you've shared, replaying conversations, laughter, or even the feeling of being near them. The important part isn't the exact storyline, it's the fact that they're there at all. Their presence in your dream world is a clue to how deeply they're embedded in your thoughts. Dreams also have an emotional effect. Waking up from a dream about someone you care about can leave you feeling warm and happy all day, or sometimes longing to see them again. You might find yourself smiling at the memory of the dream, or even feeling a little impatient to talk to them. That's because dreams can intensify the emotions you already have, making the connection feel even stronger when you're awake. It's also worth noting that recurring dreams about the same person can be a sign that something about your connection is unresolved or growing. Your subconscious might be using dreams as a way to explore those feelings without the boundaries of real life situations. It's like your mind's way of giving you extra time with them, even when you can't physically be together. For example, imagine a woman named Leila who has been spending more time with her friend David. She's not sure yet how deep her feelings go, but she finds herself thinking about him more often. One night she dreams that they're sitting on a beach, just talking and watching the waves. It's not dramatic or overly romantic, just peaceful and close. She wakes up feeling unusually happy and spends the rest of the morning replaying the dream in her head. A few days later, while chatting with David, he casually mentions that he had a dream they were traveling together and laughing the whole time. They both laugh about it, but deep down, it makes Leila wonder if maybe they're on each other's minds more than they realize. When someone starts appearing in your dreams, it's your subconscious waving a little flag, saying, this person matters to you. And when it happens to both of you, it's not just coincidence. It's a reflection of a mental and emotional connection that has seeped into every corner of your thoughts, even the ones you can't control. One of the most fascinating signs that you and someone else can't stop thinking about each other is when you keep bumping into each other in places where neither of you planned to meet. On the surface, it's easy to brush it off as coincidence, but when it starts happening often, you begin to suspect there's something deeper at play. It's as if there's an invisible thread pulling you toward the same places at the same times, and even if you try to explain it logically, part of you knows it's not entirely random. What's happening is a subtle form of mutual attraction that draws you into each other's orbit. When someone is on your mind, even subconsciously, you may find yourself gravitating toward spaces where you think they might be. You might not realize you're doing it, choosing to stop at a certain cafe, attend a specific event, or linger a little longer in a spot where you've seen them before. And when the feeling is mutual, they're doing the same thing. You're both being guided by the pull of curiosity, comfort, and connection without openly admitting it. This phenomenon is part psychology and part intuition. The human brain loves familiarity, and when a person makes us feel good, our mind will naturally seek them out again. That means you might accidentally walk into their favorite coffee shop on your lunch break, or they might just happen to be in the aisles you're shopping in at the grocery store. Over time, the frequency of these encounters makes it hard to ignore the possibility that it's not mere chance. It's two people quietly orbiting the same spaces because they can't help but want to be near each other. Another layer to this is timing. Sometimes you'll bump into each other in places you've both been to hundreds of times, but somehow you've never crossed paths before, until now when the connection between you has grown. It's almost as if your worlds didn't overlap physically until your thoughts started overlapping emotionally. And the feeling when it happens, there's a spark of surprise and excitement even if you try to play it cool. The moment feels lighter, more alive, because it wasn't planned. The interaction feels genuine and unforced, yet it carries the same warmth as a meeting you'd looked forward to all week. For example, imagine Jake and Mia, who know each other casually through mutual friends. Over the past few weeks, they've been talking more, and though neither has said anything about it, they're both curious about where this connection might go. One Saturday morning, Jake decides to stop by a local farmer's market he hasn't visited in months. While browsing the stalls, he hears someone calling his name. It's Mia, holding a basket of fresh flowers. They laugh about the coincidence, chat for a while, and then end up walking through the market together. Later, Mia admits she almost didn't go that day, but felt like getting out for a walk. Jake confesses he had no specific reason for being there either. Neither of them planned it, but it feels strangely natural, like they were meant to cross paths in that moment. When you keep bumping into the same person without trying, it's often a sign that your lives are quietly aligning. The more it happens, the more you start to feel that magnetic pull, not forced, not deliberate, but undeniably real. It's the universe's way, or perhaps your subconscious's way, of creating opportunities for you to be in the same space. And when both of you are drawn to those same spaces over and over, it's a strong clue that you're both on each other's minds far more than you're willing to admit. One of the clearest signs that you and someone else can't stop thinking about each other is when you simply can't stay mad for long. Disagreements are a natural part of any relationship, whether it's romantic, a friendship, or something in between. But when the bond between two people runs deep, even frustration or hurt feelings can overpower the pull to make things right. It's not that the conflict didn't matter. It did. It's just that the thought of staying disconnected for too long feels heavier than the argument itself. That's because this person has become an emotional priority in your life, and their absence leaves a gap you can feel immediately. When you truly care for someone, your mind can't just switch them off. Even if you're annoyed or upset, you keep thinking about them, replaying what was said, imagining what they're feeling, and wondering if they're okay. The silence between you starts to feel unnatural, almost uncomfortable. This inattention often leads one or both of you to break the ice sooner than later, because the connection matters more than being right. In the disagreement, it's not about weakness. It's about recognizing that preserving the relationship is more important than winning an argument. What makes this dynamic especially revealing is when the impulse to make amends is mutual. They might reach out first, sending a small message or making a light-hearted joke to ease the tension. Or maybe you do it not because you're ready to sweep the issue under the rug, but because you can't bear the thought of them feeling distant from you. When this happens repeatedly, it shows that both of you value the bond more than your pride. This pattern also signals a strong level of emotional investment. If you can hold grudges for days with other people, but find yourself itching to reconnect with this person after just a few hours, it's a sign they hold a unique place in your thoughts. It means their presence is woven into your day-to-day life so closely that removing it, even temporarily, feels wrong. For example, imagine Olivia and Sam, two close friends who've recently started to wonder if their feelings run deeper. One afternoon, they get into a heated argument over something small. Maybe one forgot to follow through on a plan the other was excited about. Words are exchanged, and they both go their separate ways, saying they need space. At first, Olivia tells herself she won't be the one to reach out. She's still annoyed. But as the evening goes on, she keeps thinking about Sam, not just about the argument, but about all the little moments they've shared. She wonders if he's eaten dinner, if he's watching his favorite show, if he's still upset. By the next morning, she sends a simple text, "Hope you slept okay." Minutes later, Sam replies, "I'm sorry about yesterday. I hate it when we're not talking." Neither one wanted to give in at first, but the thought of staying distant was harder than the conflict itself. Not being able to stay mad for long isn't about ignoring problems. It's about recognizing that the relationship itself is worth more than the temporary frustration. When both of you feel that way, it's a powerful sign that you're on each other's minds constantly. The emotional tie is so strong that even tension can't erase the desire to be connected. It's not just attraction, It's a form of deep loyalty and care that overrides ego and turns winning into wanting to understand, forgive, and get back to the comfort of each other's presence. One of the most powerful and telling signs that you and someone else can't stop thinking about each other is the way you feel their absence. It's not just about missing their company. It's a deeper, almost physical sense that something is out of place when they're not around. The world might still be moving, people are still talking, life is still happening, but there's a noticeable emptiness in your day. You find yourself looking at the spot they usually sit, checking your phone more often than usual, or catching yourself about to say something to them before remembering they're not there. That absence lingers, not because you can't function without them, but because they've become an integral part of your rhythm, your routine, and your emotional balance. This feeling is different from missing someone casually. When it's mutual, both of you notice the gap in your day without the other's presence. It's as if you've both gotten used to a certain energy, a certain voice, or even a certain way of looking at the world together, and without it, the day feels incomplete. That emptiness isn't just about the big moments. It's about the small things too. The little jokes, the shared glances, the comfort of knowing they're just a text away. When they're not there, you notice the absence of all those tiny moments that usually fill the spaces in your day. Psychologically, this happens because our brains form emotional associations. When someone becomes important to us, we link certain feelings of joy, comfort, and safety to their presence. Over time, our minds start to expect that presence, so when it's missing, we experience a kind of mental withdrawal. It's not unlike walking into a room you've been in 100 times only to realize a favorite piece of furniture is gone. The space feels wrong, and your eyes keep going to where it used to be. The most telling part is when you realize they feel it too. Maybe they send you a message saying, "It's weird not seeing you today," or they casually mention that their day felt off without you. It's in these moments that you know the absence isn't one-sided. It's a shared void that both of you feel, even if you don't always put it into words. For example, imagine Ethan and Claire, who work in the same office and have grown close over time. They see each other almost every day, sharing coffee breaks, trading jokes, and occasionally working late together. One week, Claire takes a few days off for a short trip. On the first day she's gone, Ethan notices the office feels unusually quiet. He goes to the break room out of habit, half expecting to see her there, but of course, she's not. Later, while working on a project, he catches himself thinking, "Claire would have a great idea for this." Meanwhile, Claire is on her trip, having a good time but still thinking about how weird it feels not to share her usual midday laugh with Ethan. She sends him a quick text, "Hope the office hasn't gone too quiet without me." He replies almost instantly, "It's not the same without you." Feeling someone's absence in this way is a clear sign that they've become part of your emotional landscape. It's not just about enjoying their company, it's about their presence filling a specific space in your life that no one else occupies in quite the same way. And when that feeling is mutual, it's undeniable proof that you're both holding a significant place in each other's hearts and minds, even in the moments when you're apart. Listen, life is short, and genuine connections are rare. If you've got someone you can't stop thinking about, and you know deep down they can't stop thinking about you either, stop letting fear write your story. Speak it, act on it. Because sometimes the difference between a what if and a lifetime memory is one honest conversation. Don't waste time playing it cool when your heart is screaming for real.